Hello again. Luke Bug, the geek of Steel here, with episode 3 of the podcast of Steel. This is another solo episode. There were some things I wanted to talk about, and the idea came into my head about what to talk about on this particular episode. And it is all about Superman stories. And I have a pile of those stories next to me that I will talk about soon. But first of all, what have I been up to this week? Well, I saw the Flash movie, and yeah, top secret mission happened to London to go and see this with some fellow bloggers from the UK, and I had an amazing time. And I can't stop thinking about the movie, and I'm excited to talk about it when I can. I've made some notes. I've made an attempt at a spoiler-free review that I will share when I can. But this film, when I can talk about it, and when we can talk about it together, we're going to have some fun for sure. Um, yeah, it was a great experience. It was in the Warner Brothers cinema in London, um, possibly the earliest screening I've ever been to. So I was very excited about that and very grateful for those that organised this whole thing. And it was great to get to London and find out that other UK bloggers would be there. We're not really allowed to share news that we're going to events like this, and we can share that news after embargoes lift. And we were told we could share our social media reactions um, at about 3:30 in the morning the following day. And I got up early when that embargo lifted because I had to start talking about it as soon as I could. And yeah, I've got notes internally and in my little Daily Planet journal as well. I was taking notes inside the theatre in the dark, and my note taking started off very neatly. I could read the words that I had written down, but towards the end of the film, when we get to that third act, my handwriting gets pretty much it's its own version of Kryptonian. That's what it is. That's the best way that I can describe it. I was so excited. I was having such a fun time. And yeah, that's all I will say right now. I will be talking a lot about this film when I can. But yeah, that's been my week pretty much so far. That was definitely it was the most exciting thing that happened. But it's a new episode, it's a new week. I'm ready to talk about some Superman comics and some Superman stories because that is what I love to do. I'm not sure how long this podcast will last for. I mean, I could talk about Superman comics for a long old time. And I have done in the past, and I probably will do again on this episode, which is again episode 3. Behind me, for those that are watching on YouTube, hello, first of all, thanks for joining me. Subscribe, like, comment, share, all that fun stuff. You know the score by now. But behind me are my shelves of steel, and on those shelves of steel are my graphic novels, my comic book collections. Some people call them comic books, some people call them graphic novels. They're stories. They're comic books, and they are wonderful, and I love them. And eventually, I'm going to be talking about all the Superman novels, all the Superman comic books that I own that are on those shelves. Each one has a dear place in my heart. Some are better than others. Some are fantastic. Some are incredible. Some are funny. Some are sad. Some are inspiring. But they are all about Superman, my boy. And I'm looking forward to talking about that. But one of those questions that I do often get online, and it is a question that I love to answer because it means I get to talk about my hero, and that is, Luke, what comic books do you recommend I read about Superman? If people want to get into Superman or start learning more about a character. I'm looking forward to the moment when we finally, it's a long way away, but I'm looking forward to that moment when we get a trailer for Superman Legacy. And at the end, we will get that recommended reading that has become a trend of late, which I love. Blue Beetle recommended some stories, and The Flash recommended some comic books that I rushed out and started reading. And it made the viewing experience more enjoyable to know that I know more about these characters. So when Superman, the the Superman Legacy trailer comes out and it says you should read these stories, I'm hoping that some of the stories that I talk about today are going to appear. They probably will because I'm more than sure that you've heard of these books before because they're fantastic, but I could talk about them for a long time. And I'm going to be talking about the stories, the artwork, and the people behind them and why they mean so much to me. So, without further ado, this is a podcast that I'm looking forward to talking about. And it's going to be easy for me that for when the next time somebody says, Luke, which Superman comics should I read? I will reply with this link and reasons why they should read them. But in no particular order, they are just here next to me. I'm going to start showing you to you and talking about them because not everybody is watching this on YouTube. But book number 1, Superman, Secret Origin, Geoff Johns, Gary Frank, and John Sibbel. And it's going to be tricky because I'm going to start reading all of these books and I'm going to get lost in the pages. But this one, The Wonderful, I'm showing you very carefully. This one is signed by Gary Frank. I got to meet him at a con a few years ago, and as well as saying thank you, he signed my copy and my copy of Action Comics number 1, that replica that I shared recently online. But this story, what I'm probably going to do is read the back page, the synopses of these books to you. But I won't do them all in my David Attenborough voice, but I might do some in a voice just to mix it up a little bit. He fell from the sky like a shooting star, the last son of a dying planet. Years later, he took to the sky yet again, the sworn protector of the planet he now calls home. But what happened in between? The true story has never been told until now. In Superman Secret Origin, superstar writer Geoff Johns from Blackest Night and Green Lantern and acclaimed artists Gary Frank and John Sibbel revealed the Man of Tomorrow's astonishing past. His childhood, when only his parents, Ma and Pa Kent, and his first love, Lana Lang, knew the secret of the red and blue streaking across the skies of Smallville. His first fight against justice 1,000 years into the future at the side of a legion of superheroes inspired by a legacy he hadn't even begun to build. His move to Metropolis, where he would befriend Jimmy Olsen and Perry White, fall in love with Lois Lane, and battle a host of deadly foes. And his link to Lex Luthor, the man sworn to destroy him no matter the cost. Undeniably contemporary, yet utterly timeless, Superman's Secret Origin is the definitive story of the Man of Steel. I managed to say that without tripping up over too many words, but this story, the artwork in this story, the resemblance to Christopher Reeve with the wonderful artwork, this is a gorgeous read. It's got some fantastic moments. It's got a gripping story. If you're a fan of the Superman 1978 Christopher Reeve film, you're going to notice so many similarities with the artwork and the action within this story. But there are still fresh takes. There are still interesting ways of storytelling. There are good villains. There are good moments. There are fantastic moments with Clark Kent and Lois Lane. It's got it all. I do really like Lois Lane in this. I like Lois Lane in most things, but in this one, she is, again, another strong character. But again, I'm showing this on the camera. It probably won't show up too well, but look at that. Look at that Clark Kent right here. It's Christopher Reeve's Clark Kent, without a doubt. It is a stunning book, fantastic story, and one that is easily on my list that I would happily share out. That image there with the shirt rip. I've actually had good friend Mike in America got some a custom piece of artwork of me in that similar pose. Now I didn't look as good as Superman or Clark Kent, but it's still a very nice art piece and one that I'm very grateful for. Next up, this is a story that easily gets recommended to everybody when they want to start reading comics and reading about Superman. And it is Superman for All Seasons. A gorgeous story with beautiful, beautiful artwork. Every single page is an absolute joy to look at and read. Tim Sale, sadly, is no longer with us, but I'm very grateful for meeting Tim at a Comic Con, and he did sign my copy. And again, I got to thank him not only for what he's done for the world of Superman, but for this story. It is, it's gorgeous. It's unique. It's like looking at a painting most times. But here's this synopsis. Before the legend, before the icon, before the man of tomorrow, there was Clark Kent, a young man coming to terms with the awesome power that fate had granted him. Experience the majestic tale of his transformation from country boy to the world's greatest hero. And a little quote on the back from Miles Miller and Alfred Gough, the creators of Smallville, combines the scope and pathos of a John Ford film with an intimate portrait of a superhero. Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale have found a truly original approach to tell a legendary Superman. This book is a milestone in the Superman canon. Those words, much more eloquent than mine, but this is a look at that. A stunning book, a stunning, wonderful story with beautiful, colorful artwork. And look at the page that I'm showing right now. For those that are not watching on YouTube, it's Superman and Pa Kent standing out in a field. And Superman is looking off at a beautiful sunset. Clark says, "Do you ever get tired of looking at that?" And Pa Kent replies with, "No, never have. Guess I never will." Again, I'm going to get lost in the pages and start reading this story. And now I've just flicked to another random page, and it is a picture in another field with Superman, Clark Kent, Kal-El in a wonderful embrace. I'm going to share that again. There's going to be moments in this podcast where it gets very quiet because I'm going to get lost in the pages. But if you haven't read this story, if you haven't enjoyed this artwork, there are again lots more scenes that look like Superman 78, and there's also a classic scene in this particular story that was homaged in the Adventures of Superman and Lois. And yeah, if you know the scene, you know the scene. Next up is the first in a trilogy. Now, DC Comics have released quite a few of these, and I've read some of them. There are more that I need to read, but it is the Earth One Superman series by J. Michael Straczynski and Shane Davis. This one for me, Earth One Volume One, is my favorite. The other two are great reads, but as an origin story goes, this was a fantastic one. Different take on the hero, different style, but still fantastic. A man of steel for a new generation. You only think you know his story. Clark Kent is different. He can fly. He can see through walls, burn objects with his gaze. He is a god among mortals, but he is alone and without a purpose. Like most 20-year-olds, he doesn't know what he wants to do with his life. He can choose from anything: sports, science, finance, or media. The sky is the limit. If he conceals his powers and his true identity from the world. But when the skies darken with ships from distant planets, and the existence of Earth itself is threatened, Clark must make the most important decision of his life: to reveal himself to the world, sacrificing his chance for a normal life, or let the world die around him. Just by reading that, I want to read this one again. This one hasn't been read for a while, but it is a brilliant story. And a great quote on the back from Richard Donner, the director of Superman the movie. Superman Earth One balances the character, the mythos, and the action that defines a great Superman story. I believed every moment. I know Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster would have thought it was awesome. That is a quote and a half. But yes, this is a stunning book, again, with beautiful artwork. One that is easy to pick up and quite difficult to put down until you finish it. Beautiful artwork, beautiful stories. I believe it is volume one. I could be wrong, and I'm sure the people listening will correct me. There's a particular part of the story where Clark is telling us about a cat that passed away, one of his pet cats. And spoiler alert, he buries said cat on the moon. And there's a wonderful little story about that in that one. I hope it's that one. I think it's that one. But yes, Superman Earth One. There are more volumes to this. There are 3 in all. But thoroughly enjoyable read and one that is always on my recommended reading list. Next up, it's a big one. It is a compendium with some beautiful work on the front by Alex Ross. Absolute legend that he is as well. This is a wonderful book. Again, it's got artwork going over generations, over the decades. And it's nice to see different styles, different colors, different S's throughout the pages of this book. And again, it tells a wonderful story going back to the very, very early days when Superman couldn't fly, but he could jump very, very high. So, yeah, starting off with the very early stuff, going as far up into modern day as, not that far, 2001. This book was published quite a few years ago. In fact, let's have a look. First published in 2004, almost 20 years ago. This book has been looked after, but read many times. But these are what I love. On some of these older books as well, you would get recommended reading on the back pages. And I think when I first started getting into Superman comics, that is where I looked to find out more. But yes, beautiful artwork, beautiful stories, enough to give you a taste of what Superman has gone through over the years and how that way of telling a story has changed. He is the first and greatest superhero of all time. I'm biased, but that is somebody else's quote on the back of this book. And now, 10 of the best Superman stories ever told, some reprinted here for the first time, are assembled in this must-have collection for all fans of the Man of Steel. Read the comic stories that have defined the legend of Superman for millions of readers. Oh, good read. Good stories. If you want to know about Superman over the decades, this is the one for you. Now, next up, this is technically an Elseworld story, but one that I absolutely adore. And it is Superman Secret Identity. Oh, I nearly threw out of my hands there. Superman Secret Identity. What makes this story work is the narration. Busiek does what he does best, and that's to bring credibility to an incredible situation. The plotting achieves it to some extent, but it's Clark's voice that really drives home the down-to-earth quality of the story. Clark's character is well realized, and we can hear the sadness, anger, and loneliness in his voice. What stands out most to express emotions in the individual faces of the characters and the details he renders onto them. Immonen also takes on the chore of colouring his own artwork, and in doing so, fully controls the look of each page, thereby ensuring that his vision for the book is fulfilled. This combination produces what may be deemed as one of his best works ever. Yes, Kurt Busiek and Stuart Immonen. It is a glorious, glorious story, which it's a new way of telling this particular story that we all know and love. But I mean, if this particular story was put into a film, I would watch it. I've daydreamed about this story many, many times over the years. It's a gem. It isn't a hidden gem because many people love this book as much as I do. But the artwork and the storytelling and the possibilities that this particular story tells us, it's a good one. And I don't like giving out too many spoilers about certain stories, but if you have read this one, you will know what I'm talking about and you will enjoy it. And I like talking about this book with people. I mean, I have hopes that along the way with this podcast adventure, some of these heroes that have brought these stories to life, that have helped create the artwork and the stories themselves, will become special guests on this show. And fingers crossed, because I would love to speak with anybody that brings my hero to life. Next up, we have another story, a fantastic story, Superman for Tomorrow, by Brian Azzarello, Jim Lee, and Scott Williams. This would make, again, I could say this about every Superman story, but it could make a fantastic film. The artwork in this one, the darkness, Superman's angry looks are beautiful in this. The way that he stares down villains and almost stares into your soul as he does that. It's a fantastic story. And it is about millions of people have vanished without a trace. No one is left unaffected, not even Superman. But after a year, the Man of Steel is left with many questions. For a hero who tries to have all the answers, it's torture. And just as the action heats up and the stakes are raised, one huge question emerges. Just how far is Superman willing to go for tomorrow? Ooh. Brilliant story. Again, dark at times, hopeful as always. It's got, how can I put it? It's got some loud moments. The artwork combined with the action makes for a noisy page. There's a lot going on, and you have to really study the dialogue and the artwork to get a grip on the story. But yet, it is still a fun read. It's what I love about graphic novels such as this, is that once you pick them up, as I get distracted there by some gorgeous artwork that we've probably seen shared a lot online, but the stories in this are amazing. Brilliant stuff. Again, these, I'm going to eventually put these books. Oh, there it is. Distracted again. That particular Jim Lee piece of artwork, as I'm back to front on the camera. I can't do this. There it is. Superman standing majestically on a New York, I suppose, building. You would call that a gargoyle of sorts. That is actually behind me, right there, because that design is iconic and has been turned into a Funko Pop. And it's just a fantastic pose of Superman looking over his darling metropolis, protecting and looking out for the future, for tomorrow, as it were. Nice segue, Luke. Ooh. Next up is another big book. Superman, Birthright. The origin of the Man of Steel. Mark Waid, Leinil Francis Yu, and Jerry Allen Guillen. Some of the names I'm probably not pronouncing as well as I could have, but that is the magic of reading, is that sometimes you will see a word for the first time, or a word that you've seen many times, but you've never really heard pronounced properly. There are words that I sometimes do get incorrect, and I'm sure some of you lovely listeners will pick me up on that. But this particular book, as I digress, Superman Birthright, The Origin of the Man of Steel. It's a good read. The whole world knows that Superman fights for truth and justice. But why does he? What drives a farm boy from Kansas to divide his life between posing as a mild-mannered reporter and embarking on a career as a superhero? Superman Birthright tells the exciting origin of the Man of Steel, incorporating his vast and colorful legend into a brand new epic tale, a battle to save both the legacy of Krypton and the future of Metropolis. A lot of these books use that word legacy, and I'm sure a lot of these books James Gunn is aware of. and has read these or is reading these to help get him ready for this Superman movie that I'm still very excited for. This is a good read. And what I like about this one is that there was even Kryptonian in this book. Now, many moons ago, I spoke with the wonderful Mark Waid, and I hope to interview him again one day in the future. He has got more Superman stories in him that he was just raring to tell us, and I am ready to read them. But this is a big read with some fantastic artwork and a brilliant, brilliant Lex Luthor. But again, I tend to get drawn to certain things in different stories. In this one, it's the eyes, whether they're angry or emotional or closed in some cases. The artwork in this book is stunning. And again, getting lost in the pages, but it's got action, it's got quiet and loud moments again. It's got action sequences that make you not want to turn the page, but study every single line, every single word. And it's creative in its storytelling. Again, I'm getting lost in the pages yet again, but that is the sign of a good story. Plus, whenever Lois Lane has purple eyes, they are eyes that I just can't take my eyes off. And for that, even for that simple little design, this book was easily one of my own. One of those books that I recommend to other people. And look, as I go back, look at the back. I mean, that's just a. I would love that physique. Don't get me wrong. I will never be 6'4", but I've got trainers similar to that. That Clark is wearing on the back there, and I can always wear glasses. A stunning book, absolutely stunning. Birthright has everything a Superman fan could want. Mark Waid was born to write Superman. I fully agree with that quote. A rich retelling and revamping of Superman's origin. A brilliant book. It's a big book as well. It's a good read. It's a good collection of fantastic stories. Add this one to your list, people. Add this to your list. Now, next up is it is a two-parter because there are two parts to this book, and this is one that everyone is aware of. Its pages have been shared online for years and years and years. It is Superman. So I just stand here with these books. It's perfect thumbnail. I will be talking a lot about these books over the upcoming weeks and months. I really enjoy talking about books and Superman stories, even when there's nobody else there to talk to me about them. So I think I'm going to have to dedicate a few podcasts to some of these stories just so that I can go through them in full and share the parts of the books that I want to talk about. But Superman, All-Star Superman, a stirringly mythic, emotionally resonant, and gloriously alternative take on the Man of Steel. Other people's words are always so much, I feel, better than mine, but I am trying to get better at increasing my word piles. These are stunning books, stunning stories, and this one in particular. The measure of a man lies not in what he says, but what he does. With a fantastic piece of artwork signed by Frank Quitely. I'm very happy about this one in my collection. Frank Quitely came to the Superman Comic-Con. No, the Portsmouth Comic-Con, the first Comic-Con they ever put on. And I was very excited when I found that Frank was going to be there to, again, just to be able to shake the hand of the man that helped brought this story to life and created such wonderful artwork. I will need to talk about this book more on the podcast for sure. Because right now I'm just thinking about the things that I need to bring up. And hopefully within that time, those that haven't read this book will have time to read it. It's stunning. We know now that possibly these books are going to be part of the storytelling that James Gunn will use in Superman Legacy. But even if not, even if they're there just to let fans, both new and old, read more stories about this iconic superhero, I'm happy, because what has been fantastic, as I go back to this fact that DC Comics are recommending reading at the end of these new trailers, the books are selling out. People are going out of their way to order these comics, to read them, to learn more about the characters, to learn more about the world of DC Comics. And that makes me very happy. Oh, but yes, Superman All-Star Superman. I think that's one of the books that it's mentioned straight away. I will never get tired of hearing that. I'm always happy when someone asks me, have you read All-Star Superman? The answer is always yes. I was like, yes, obvious, not obviously, but I have read it. I've enjoyed it. Let's talk about it. What did you like? What parts maybe didn't you like? Which parts of this book would you love to see on the big screen in a live version? Yes, it has been animated, and I think the 4K comes out later on this year. But it is a stunning story, and maybe that'd be a good time for me to talk about it more, is when that 4K gets released. Oh, future me has put ideas in my head. But All-Star Superman, fantastic story. Fantastic. Next up is a bit of a shorter story. Now, this one was a beautiful read. Man and Superman by Marv Wolfman. And beautiful work by Claudio Castellini. Again, I apologize if I mispronounce that name, but this is a beautiful, beautiful tale. Marv Wolfman, an icon in the comic world. Oh my goodness, look at that. And just a fantastic, fantastic storyteller. Let me just flick through some of the pages, but look at that. First of all, look at that jaw. That's a Superman jaw right there. Goodness me. This story, I remember when I first heard about it and it was going to be released. I was like, okay, this is going to be a good one, and did not disappoint. Classic Superman artwork. Big shoulders, big muscles, big suits, and fantastic colors. And again, more beautiful, tender moments between Superman and Mar and Pa Kent. I'm already wanting to reread this one. It caught my eye. And again, on the back, Superman's quote: "I was wrong. Ma and Pa were wrong. I can't do this." It's those moments sometimes in a Superman TV film or comic when Superman doubts himself, when he's not too sure that he can do something, even though he's got all these powers and all this wisdom. And it's those moments of self-doubt and anxiety that comes off the pages. When people say that Superman is overpowered or he's too strong and he's not relatable, it's just you're not. It's not that people aren't reading the comics correctly; it's that they're not reading into the comics correctly. Superman's an onion in the eyes of Shrek. He's got layers, so many layers, and when you combine those layers of Clark Kent and Superman, you get a fantastic story. And this one, Man and Superman by Marv Wolfman, again, is another just fantastic read. This is the thing. I'm not going to get many more podcasts recorded over the next few weeks because I'm going to start rereading these stories again and just get nothing done. And I am totally okay with that. Another good run of stories. Not really a sort of an origin story, as it were, but for getting into the character of Superman and what it means to so many, the Superman 78 series. They were fantastic and good reads as well. pretty much, if you're going to ask for me to recommend you a Superman story, I'm going to just go over to my bookshelf and pull off any story and show you. But these ones, the ones that I've shared in this video, they are they are the ones that are just, if you want to just get in on the ground floor and read a fantastic story, and hopefully by the end of it, want to read more stories and see what else Superman has got up to over the years. These are the ones. And I've got origin stories, I've got more sillier stories, I've got more serious stories. I've got graphic novels behind me that are based on Superman and are a part of the Superman universe, but aren't necessarily about Superman, but still deserve to get a lot of love. There's one particular book called Is It a Bird, which I will be sharing on here. And I think, mental note, Luke, future Luke, when you're listening back to this, reach out to the author of that book in the hopes that you can speak to them more about it, because it is a touching tale. It is a wonderful book, which I'm going to enjoy reading again, but hopefully speak to the people that brought it to life. But finally, this is a large book. This is the book that was on the bottom of my pile. It's huge, but it's gorgeous. Superman, Peace on Earth. I look upon my powers as a gift, not mine alone, but for anyone who needs them. Oof. As the holiday season arrives in Metropolis, Superman becomes uncomfortably aware of the stark division between the privileged few and the impoverished many who verge on starvation. Deciding he can best help by example, Superman puts his incredible powers to work in a titanic effort to alleviate world hunger. Despite the cynicism he encounters along the way, his greatest gift to the world is an undeniable message of hope and peace. Superman, Peace on Earth is a graphic novel in a unique format, combining aspects of both comics and picture books. Writer Paul Dini, the Emmy Award-winning producer of the Superman and Batman animated series, has joined forces with illustrator Alex Ross, the most acclaimed painter in comics today, to create this classic work for all ages. Now, my hands aren't the smallest, but this book is huge, and the artwork inside. Now, it's a short story. It's not long, but you will take your time reading this because every single page is glorious. I'm not entirely sure how long this book took Alex Ross to create the artwork for, but you know that every single brushstroke, every single line had a reason behind it. That artwork physically jumps off, physically jumps off the pages and is just beautiful. I'm showing you some pages on the camera now, probably doing a dreadful job of showing it, but incredible. Absolutely. I had a thought many years ago about getting an extra copy of this and carefully taking out the pages, which is sounds blasphemous to even think about doing that, but to put them into frames and hang them up on my wall. I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to afford an Alex Ross original, but just seeing this artwork in this book in a frame would be better than any television program or Netflix special. I can't get enough of the artwork of Alex Ross, and to see that on my wall would be wonderful. So one must have a dream. But yes, that was my list of recommended reading. I'm sure I've left some stories out, and I'm sure that there are stories that you would include in that list, but I haven't. And that is the great thing about the internet. We can recommend things to others. I love getting new stories or hearing opinions about stories that I've already read, because it makes me want to go back and see what I've missed or how the interpretation of a character to somebody else is different to the way that I would interpret it. And so, yes, these books that I will go through again once more are the ones that I love recommending to others. Now, there's a lot of books there. I try to narrow it down time and time again, but it always ends up, sadly, more issues get added to the list. Johnny, if you're listening, you are the inspiration to this particular podcast, because you asked me recently which books you should be reading when it comes to Superman, and you went out and you got the books that I suggested, and I was like, wow, it's wonderful to have a voice on the internet, as it were, because I love talking about Superman. But when people genuinely listen to the words that I'm saying, it makes me smile and it makes me happy. So, Johnny, I hope you enjoyed the books. And please, if anybody out there wants me to recommend anything about Superman when it comes to the stories, not just if it's your first time wanting to read about the character, but talking about how Superman deals with loss, how Superman deals with doubt and failure and resilience, how this wonderfully godlike being still has bad days, because those are the many, many aspects of Superman that I love to read about and talk about. Hence why I didn't really have a script or bullet points for this particular episode, and I've already been talking for 40 minutes. I thought this might be a 50-minute episode, 15 minutes rather, but again, whoops, sorry. When I start talking about Superman and my boy, things happen, and I get lost in the moment, as it were. But thank you for listening. This has been a fun episode. I wanted to record this about these stories and books, so I'm glad I did. But it was I scratched the surface. I feel there is so much to talk about these particular stories that I'm going to be coming back and talking about them in full. There will be a special episode all about All-Star Superman, possibly about all of these books. If I was to record a weekly these podcasts, as I interrupt myself, when I decided to bring them back, they were going to be 2 weekly, because I thought, surely there's not much I can talk about Superman and pop culture every week. But when I get ideas in my head like this, I want to record more episodes and talk in more depth about what brings me joy. Because when I talk about things that make me happy, it makes me happy, funnily enough. And that's why we should all, again, embrace our passions. That is the message behind this podcast. But I will be talking about these books more in the future. And I'm going to set myself some goals to talk to those fantastic people that have helped bring these pages to my eyes. Because all these books, they mean something to me. And I'm grateful for every single page and the people that brought them to life. So, thank you for listening. It was a good episode to record. It's quite cathartic and therapeutic for me. I have got some interesting things coming up soon. For example, this evening, behind the scenes, I'm going to be on, potentially, it might happen, it might not, be on a radio show talking about Superman, and asking the host some questions, some trivia questions about Superman the movie. And if I get a recording of that, if I'm allowed to share it, I will add that to a future episode of the podcast of Still. I'll be talking soon with some members that are working on Portsmouth Comic Con and who are bringing that con to life. They are heroes without capes, and some actually have capes, which is even better. I will be talking to some Superman artists and Superman fans from around the world, and other people that love sharing their passions online. So I'm looking forward to sharing some fantastic episodes soon. But just to recap the stories that I think that you should be reading when it comes to knowing more about Superman, it's Superman Peace on Earth by Alex Ross and Paul Dini, Man and Superman by Marv Wolfman, All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison and Frank Whiteley, Superman Birthright by Mark Waid, Brian Azzarello Superman for Tomorrow. Secret Identity by Kurt Busiek. Superman, the greatest story ever told by various writers and artists. Superman Earth One by J. Michael Straczynski. Superman for All Seasons by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. Gorgeous. It's hard to just pick that up and not read it. And finally, it was a Jeff Johns Superman Secret Origin. More books over the years, I'm sure, will be added to this list of recommended reading. But for right now, these are the ones that mean something to me and hopefully mean something to you as well. I am Luke Bugg, the Geek of Steel. Thank you for listening and for watching on YouTube. Please like, comment, subscribe, share, all the regular stuff. And I'll be back soon with a brand new episode of the Podcast of Steel, talking about Superman, no doubt, anything that is geeky, sharing my love for passion and positivity, and speaking about all those things that make me happy. Thank you for listening. You can find me online, just search for Luke Bugg, the Geek of Steel, and you will find me, and I'll be back soon with a brand new episode of the Podcast of Steel.